Good morning, crime community. I'm here to read out some poetry by Emily Dickinson, the first series of poems. The editor's commentary. The first of the poems of Emily Dickinson was published in November 1890. It was an unassuming posthumous volume bound in the modest gray cloth that would have pleased the poet who died 4 years before the book was issued. The selection was made, edited, and in some instances amended by Emily Dickinson's two friends, Mabel Loomis Todd and Colonel Thomas Wentworth Higginson. Although Mrs. Todd did the major work of deciphering and transcribing the hundreds of small manuscripts, it was Higginson who wrote the preface. The verses of Emily Dickinson belong emphatically to what Emerson long since called the poetry of the portfolio, something produced absolutely without the thought of publication and solely by way of expression of the writer's own mind. Such verse must inevitably forfeit whatever advantage lies in the discipline of public criticism and the enforced conformity to accepted ways. On the other hand, it may often gain something through the habit of freedom and unconventional utterance of daring thoughts. In the case of the present author, there was absolutely no choice in the matter. She must write thus or not at all. A recluse by temperament and habit, literally spending years without setting her foot beyond the doorstep, and many more years during which her walks were strictly limited to her father's grounds, she habitually concealed her mind, like her person, but all but a very few friends, and it was the great difficulty that she persuaded to print during her lifetime 3 or 4 poems. As she wrote verses in great abundance and through curiously indifferent to all conventional rules, she had yet a rigorous literary standard of her own. Miss Dickinson was born in Amherst, Massachusetts, December 10th, 1830, and died there on May 15th, 1886. Her father, Honorable Edward Dickinson, was the leading lawyer of Amherst and was treasurer of the well-known college that's situated. It was his custom once a year to hold a large reception at his house, attended by all the families connected with the institution and by the leading people of the town. On these occasions, his daughter Emily emerged from her wonted retirement and did her part as gracious hostess, nor would have anyone have known from her manner. I have been told that this was not a daily occurrence. The annual occasion once passed, she grew again into her seclusion, except for a very few friends and an invisible to the world, as if she had dwelt in a nunnery. For myself, although I had corresponded with her for many years, I saw her but twice face to face and brought away the impression of something as unique and remote as Undine. The selection of her poems is published to meet the desire of her personal friends and especially of her surviving sister. It is believed that the thoughtful reader will find in these pages a quality more suggestive of the poetry of William Blake than of anything to be elsewhere found. Flashes of holy originality and profound insight into nature and life, words and phrases exhibiting an extraordinary vividness of descriptiveness and imagination power, yet often set in the seemingly whimsical or even rugged frame. They were here published as they were written, with very few and superficial changes, although it is fair to say that the titles have been assigned almost invariably by the editors. In some cases, these verses will seem to the reader like poetry torn up by the roots, with rain and dew and earth still clinging to them, giving a fresh and fragrance not otherwise to be conveyed. In other cases, in the few poems of shipwreck or of mental conflict, we can only wonder at the gift of vivid imagination by which this recluse woman can delineate, by a few touches, and the very crisis of physical and mental struggle. And sometimes again we catch glimpses of a lyric strain, sustained perhaps but for a few or two at the time, and making the reader regret its sudden cessation. The main quality of these poems is that of extraordinary grasp and insight, uttered within an uneven vigor, sometimes exasperating, sometimes wayward, but really unsought and inevitable. After all, when a thought takes one's breath away, a lesson on grammar seems an impertinence. As Ruskin wrote in his early and better days, no weight, nor mass, nor beauty, nor execution can outweigh one grain of fragments. Emily's first poem, Prelude. This is my letter to the world that never wrote to me. the simple news that nature told with tender majesty. Her messages committed to hands I cannot see. For love of her, sweet countrymen, judge tenderly of me. Success. Success is counted sweetest by those who ne'er succeed. To comprehend a nectar requires sorest need. No one of all the purple host who took the flag today can tell the definition so clear of victory. And he defeated dying, on whose forbidden ear the distant strains of triumph break agonized and clear. Our share of night to bear, our share of morning, our blank in bliss to fill, our blank in scorning. Here a star and there a star, some lose their way. Here a mist and there a mist, afterwards day. Rogue et nor. Soul, wilt thou toss again by just such a hazard? Hundreds have lost indeed, but tens have won in all. Angels' breathless ballot lingers to record thee. Imps to eager caucus, wrathful for my soul. Rogue Gagny. 'Tis is so much joy, 'tis is so much joy, if I should fail, what poverty! And yet, as poor as I, have ventured all upon a throw, have again, yes, hesitated so, this side the victory. Life is but life, and death but death. Bliss is but bliss, and breath but breath. And if indeed I fail, at least I know the worst is sweet. Defeat means nothing but defeat, nor drearer can prevail. And if I gain, O gun at sea, O bells that in the steeples be, at first repeated slow, for heaven is a different thing, conjectured and waked sudden in, and might overwhelm me so. Glee, the great storm is over, 4 have recovered the land, 40 gone down together into the boiling sand. Ring for the scant salvation, tell the bonny souls, neighbor and friend and bridegroom spinning upon the shoals. Now they will tell the shipwreck when winter takes the door, till the children ask, but the 40, did they come back no more? Then a silence effuses the story, and a softness the teller's eye, and the children's no further question, and only he weighs reply. If I can stop one heart from breaking, I shall not live in vain. If I can ease one's life the aching, or cool one pain, or help one fainting robin into his nest again, I shall not live in vain. Almost. Within my reach I could have touched, I might have chanced that way, soft sauntered through the village, sauntered as soft away, so unsuspected violets within the fields lie low, too late for striving fingers that passed an hour ago. A wounded deer leapest high, I've heard the hunter tell, 'tis is but the ecstasy of death, and then the break is still. The smitten rock that gushes, the trampled steel that springs, a cheek is always redder, just where the hectic stings. Mirth is the nail of anguish, in which it caution arm, lest anybody spy the blood, and you're hurt, exclaim. The heart asks pleasure first, and then excuse from pain, and then those little anodynes that deafen suffering, and then go to sleep, and then, if it should be, it will of its inquisitor, the liberty to die. In a library. A precious moldering pleasure is to meet an antique book, is just the dress his century wore, a privilege, I think, his venerable hand to take, and warning in our own, a passage back or two to make, to times when he was young. His quaint opinion to inspect, his knowledge to unfold, or what concerns our mutual mind, the literature of old, what interests scholars most, what competitions ran when Plato was a certainty and Sophocles a man, when Sappho was a living girl and Beatrice wore the gown of Dante, defied facts centuries before. He traverses familiar, and one should come to town and tell you all your dreams were too. He lived where dreams were sown. His presence is enchanted. You beg him not to go. Old volumes shake their vellum heads and tantalize just so. Much madness is divinest sense, and a discerning eye makes sense the starkest madness. 'Tis is the majority. In this all, as all prevails, assent and you are sane. Do more, you're straightaway dangerous and handled with a chain. I'm asking no other thing, no other was denied. I offered being for it. The mighty merchant smiled. Brazil, he twirled a button without a glance but way. But, madame, is there nothing else that we can show today? Exclusion. The soul selects her own society, then shuts the door on her own majority. Obtrude no more. Unmoved, she notes the chariots pausing as her low gate. Unmoved, an emperor is kneeling upon her mat. I've known her from an ample nation, chose one, then closed the valves of her attention like stone. The secret. Some things that fly there be, birds, ours, and bumblebee, and these no elegy. Some things that stay there be, grief, hills, eternity, nor this beloveth me. There are the resting rise. Can I expound the skies? And still the riddle lies. The lonely house. I know some lonely houses off the road, a robber look the look of, wooden barred and windows hanging low, inviting to a portico where two could creep, one hands the tools, the other peep, to make sure all's asleep, old-fashioned eyes, not easy to surprise, how orderly the kitchen looked by night with just a clock, and they could gag the tick, and mice won't bark, and so the walls don't tell, none will, and pair of spectacles ajar just stir, and almanacs aware. Was it the mat winked or a nervous star? The moon slid down the stair. See who's there. There's plunder where? Tankard or spoon, earring or stone, a watch, some ancient brooch. To match the grandmama, stayed sleeping there. Day rattles too, still slow. The sun has got as far as the third sycamore. Screams chancellor. Who's there? The echo trains away. Sneer where? While the old couple just astir. Fancy the surprise left the door ajar. Dawn. When night is almost done and sunrise goes so near that we can touch the spaces, it's time to smooth the hair and get the dimples ready and wonder we could care for that old faded midnight, that faded but an hour. The mystery of pain. Pain has an element of blank. It cannot recollect when it began, and if there were a day when it was not, it has no future but itself, its infinite realm contained. Its past enlightened to perceive no periods of pain. I had no time to hate because the grave would hinder me, and life would not so ample I could finish enmity. Nor have I time to love, but since some industry must be, the little toil of love, I thought, was large enough for me. To fight aloud is very brave, a gallanteer I know, whose charge within the bosom, the cavalry of woe, who win the nations do not see, who fall and none observe, whose dying eyes no country regards with patriot love. We trust in plume procession, for such the angels go, rank after rank, with even feet and uniforms of snow. I taste the liquor never brewed, from tankards scooped in pearl. Not all the vats upon the Rhine yield such an alcohol. Inebriate of air am I, and debauchee of dew, reeling through endless summer days from inns of molten blue. When landlords turn the drunken bee out of the foxglove's door, and butterflies renounce their drams, I shall but drink the more. Till seraphs swing their snowy hats and saints to windows run, to see the little tippler leaning against the sun. The Book of Martyrs. Read, sweet, how others stow, till we are stouter. What they renounce, till we are less afraid. How many times they bore the faithful witness, till we are helped, as if a kingdom cared. Read them of faith that shone above the faggot, clear strains of hymn the river could not drown. Brave names of men and celestial women passed out of record into renown. A book. He ate and drank the precious words. His spirit grew robust. He knew no more than he was poor, nor that his fame was dust. He danced along the dingy days, and he bequest of wings was but a book, what liberty a loosened spirit brings. Unreturning. 'Tis such a little boat that toddled down the bay. 'Tis what such a gallant sea that beckoned it away. 'T was such a greedy wave that licked it from the coast, nor ever guessed the stately sails my little craft was lost. Where my bark went down at sea, where she met with gales, whether to isles enchanted she bent her docile sails, and what mystic mooring is held today. This is an errand of the eye, out upon the bay. Belshazzar had a letter, but never had but one. Belshazzar's correspondent, concluded and begun. In that immortal copy, the conscience of us all can read without its glasses on Revelation's wall. The brain within its groove runs evenly and true, but let a splinter swerve. 'T were easier for you to put the water back when floods have split the hills and scooped the turnpike for themselves and blotted out the mills. Thus is the end of the beginning of life, and the next series is called Love. We will end today with a thank you for Emily Bronte and her wonderful work, and anyone who watches my stream, please like and subscribe and share, and have a beautiful day.